Today, we're going to talk about why it's hard to focus our mind. Despite our best efforts, our mind seems to remain scattered. We're sort of juggling too many things, we're starting to feel overwhelmed, and without a focused mind, tasks don't get done in the right way. So the funny thing here is that as we try to solve this problem, it turns out that one of the things that we think is a solution is actually a big cause of the problem, and that is efficiency. If you're ready to take the next step on your mental health journey, check out Dr. K's Guide. It's an immersive resource that distills over 20 years of my experience, laid out in a way that is tailored to your needs. So if you're ready to better understand your mind and take control of it, check out the link in the description below. So hear me out, because generally speaking, we think of efficiency as a good thing, right? The more efficient we are, the more we can accomplish, the more we'll get done, the more productive we are. But as it turns out, if you really look at the nature of the mind and efficiency, we'll discover how a big cause of the scattered mind today is actually the pursuit of efficiency. So let's take a step back and take a look at efficiency. So when we're talking about efficiency, what does that mean? So in our mind, we tend to have lots of different tasks. And what we used to do is prioritize, right? We can't do everything at once, so you have to pick what to do. The tricky thing with efficiency is efficiency allows you to do more than one thing, right? We can pack in more things into 1 hour or even one individual moment if we are efficient. So I could be, for example, like eating a burrito, driving, and listening to an audiobook. And so this inefficient part of like my commute can now be productively used to learn something or gain a skill and deal with this inefficient time that I have of like actually needing to feed my body. So if you sort of stop and think about it, the more efficient that we're trying to become, okay, now I'm going to listen to some sort of book or audiobook while I'm exercising. I'm going to read something when I'm on the toilet. I'm going to watch something every time I have a meal. We're even taking our fun and trying to make it as efficient as possible. And so this may sound a little bit off to you, but there's actually a huge problem with this, which is when we are efficient, we actually allow the mind to remain greedy. So if we're not efficient, what does the mind have to do? It has to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I have to let go of this other thing. Anytime we prioritize, what we have to do is let go of particular things. We have to devalue and sort of say, okay, I'm not going to be able to do that. I just have the time to focus on one thing. And this is what we call prioritization. The tricky thing about efficiency is it allows us to not prioritize, right? Because if I've got a list of 10 things, I'm not going to cut 5 of them off the list. What I'm going to do is find an efficient way to accomplish them all. And so when we end up with a greedy mind that is unwilling to give anything up because we're being efficient, this is ultimately what leads to a scattered mind. Because now instead of focusing on one thing, which is the consequence when I prioritize, right? I have to take things off of my list. And then as a result, I'm just focusing on one thing because this is the priority and I can't do everything anyway, so let me do a good job here. What is the world we live in? It's the opposite of that. I've got 10 things to handle. I've got to do them all yesterday. And so I result in sort of a scattered mind where I'm juggling lots of different tasks and I can't give anything up. You may be a victim to this if you feel like when you look at your to-do list, you can't afford to take something off of your list. And if you can't afford to take it off your list, what do you end up doing? You end up being efficient. And the more efficient you try to be, what is your actual experience? That you're overwhelmed and scattered and your energy is spread way too thin. We also see this in a surprising place, which is actually online dating. So when you look at an online dating profile today, what do you see? You see a list of requirements, right? 6 feet tall, 6 figures, 6 inches, or on the flip side, dudes are looking for, that's usually women are looking for that, but maybe dudes too. And then women are looking for someone who's emotionally available, but is also like, allows me to be independent, but makes plenty of money. And we're sort of, everyone's looking for everything, right? I've never seen a dating profile where someone says, these are my priorities in this order. If you've got one, that's the most important thing. And if you don't have 3 through 10, that's actually okay because these are my priorities. Instead, what you have is someone who's looking for everything, right? I want it all. I want someone who's physically attractive, someone who's emotionally available, someone who is wealthy and independent, someone who, these are the things that we're looking for. We're looking for everything, and we're not willing to give anything up. And what does that result in? An inability to find a partner because we're not willing to prioritize. So the more that you're trying to accomplish everything, whether it's tasks or find the perfect partner, what you'll notice is that as your mind is juggling 10 tasks, it can't focus on a single one. And so paradoxically, our desire to get everything done is what results in getting very little done. The more that we try to do, the more that our attention is scattered. The more that our attention is scattered, the less we are able to focus on one thing and check one box and get it off of our list. The more unable we are to actually remove things off of our list, the more our list piles up and the more overwhelmed we become. Then we start to juggle more and more, and our mind becomes more and more scattered and more diffuse, and the cycle repeats. And what is our solution to this? Oh, that's right. I need to be more efficient, because if I can be more efficient, I can check 3 things off at once. And so paradoxically, what we need to do is actually take a step away from efficiency. We need to start to realize that the more efficient I try to be, actually what my mind is doing is being extra greedy. I'm not willing to give things up. And if I'm not willing to give things up, I can't actually focus on one task. If you're listening to this and you're feeling kind of skeptical about it, let's take a look at that, because your mind right now is saying, I can't afford to prioritize. I can't afford to give things up. My boss demands too much. I have to exercise. I have to do this stuff. I have to clean the house. I have to build my skills. I have to learn social skills. I have to learn how to date. I have to get in shape. I have to contribute to my retirement. I have so many things to do. And think about that's the strategy of your mind, where has it gotten you? When you've tried to do 1,000 things because they're all so important and you can't afford to give something up, how does that actually end up working out? And think about the converse as well. I want y'all to think about a time in your life where you've woken up maybe and you were focused on just one thing. For some reason, you were not burdened by everything. And there may be these moments in your life, I know I've certainly had them, and especially if you've got ADHD, this may resonate with you, that you wake up and in 4 hours, you can do 1 week's worth of work. You're just like banging things out one at a time, and you get so much done. And if you have these moments, you may start to think to yourself, wow, imagine what I could accomplish if I could do this every single day. And so since you know you're capable of it, you start to add more and more things on. Okay, I can now add tons of stuff because if I can get to this maximum efficiency of getting so much done in 4 hours, then I could accomplish so much. But think about how your mind actually operates in those 4 hours. And I would bet money that in those 4 hours, your mind is not actually trying to do 1,000 things at once. The way that you accomplish so much is because you're not actually thinking about the 100 things that you have to do. You're just thinking about one and you finish it fast. And then your mind is like, all right, I feel pretty good. Let's do another thing. Boom. Let's do another thing. Boom. Let's do another thing. Boom. And so it turns out that the more we focus on efficiency, the less we prioritize. The less we prioritize, the less our mind has to give things up. We're facilitating a greedy mind that doesn't have to give anything up, is unwilling to face the consequences of giving things up. As we're unwilling to give things up, our attention becomes scattered and we actually don't perform very well. And so how do we fix this? A couple of things that you can do. The first is to notice when your mind seeks efficiency. And when it seeks efficiency, tunnel down into your emotional state in that moment. And what you'll probably discover is that your mind is unwilling to grieve the loss of a particular thing. And so it feels attached and bound to that thing. And the more attached and bound it becomes, the more scattered it will become. The harder it will be to attain that flow state because you're so stressed. So even the noticing can help. The second thing that you can do is a technique called tatva abhyasa. So this is a very, very old pre-meditative technique that was taught by yogis in the Himalayas. So what they sort of noticed is even before we start to meditate, because a lot of times people will tell you, oh, maybe you should meditate, but that may be hard for you. So there's actually a preparatory exercise. And tatva abhyasa is about focusing on one thing at a time. And you may say, but that's hard for me. So that's why we're going to start small. So forget about the important things. Instead, what we're going to do is take the unimportant things and we're going to just do one thing at a time. So if you're eating a meal, don't watch or listen to anything. Don't even have a conversation while you're eating a meal. Just focus on eating the meal. That's all we're going to do. Other examples of this are if you're, in the shower or on the toilet or something like that, steer clear of your phone because there's a lot of negative impacts of technology as well. But anytime you're doing something, as many things as you can, just do that thing. If you're going for a walk, don't listen to an audiobook. If you're exercising, maybe you can listen to music, but even try exercising without listening to music. So as many things as you can, just do them by themselves. And what this facilitates is every time you do that, your mind has to give something up, right? You're going to practice getting rid of efficiency because now we're not learning and exercising at the same time. And as you'll sort of discover, as you train up that muscle, you'll be able to give things up. And as you're able to give things up and be free of efficiency, you will actually facilitate those flow states or those hyperproductivity states. And there are also benefits for things like it'll help you facilitate setting boundaries because as you give things up and you sort of recognize that you can't do something, you will sort of tell people, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you with this. And internally, you're going to set your priorities. As you set priorities, it'll help you set boundaries. And the last thing that you'll see, and we've seen this a lot in career coaching when we sort of train people to focus on one thing at a time, is a reduction in burnout. So if you're struggling with a scattered mind, chances are the reason that you continue to have difficulty focusing is because you're actually sabotaging yourself by pursuing efficiency.